You know,
What's going on, man?
I'm a little
It's
disappointed.
Starfire.
Nice to meet you.
And, I'm a simple
Welcome
guy,
back
and
to
I,
the
li- I
world
live
of
my
Frank
life by really
Starfire.
simple means, you know what I mean?
It's an
And,
amazing
I live by
place.
simple mottos and credos
you
and
know,
phrases and everything because it works for me, you know what I mean?
wonderful
Lately,
happens.
I've adopted a new one.
Thank you, Zoom. And good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Frank Starfire, and with me today is Mary Joye. This here is the Just to Be Frank podcast. I want to thank y'all ever so much for joining me. Ms. Joye, could you please tell everybody what it is that you do, so I don't butcher it?
Licensed mental health counselor. And I'm also a family court mediator. And I write books and e-courses for daily own. And
Okay.
I write for a lot of websites, but I'm an author, a counselor, and I used to be a songwriter, which those are actually the same profession. I'm getting people in touch with their emotions.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I tell people the music is a form of magic, and most people don't believe in magic because we're jaded and we're pretty much it. That's it. We're jaded. But I still believe in magic, and I believe music is one of the deepest forms of it because a song can transport you to a time and place, touch your soul,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
evoke emotion. That's magic.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's transcendent. One of my favorite songs is called The Book of Love by Peter Gabriel. And he said, love has music in it. And then he goes on to say some of it is transcendental and some of it's just really dumb. And I love that paradox of that, because you can tell a happy song or a sad song, no matter what language it's in. It doesn't matter if it's opera or rap or country or pop. You can tell a sad song from a happy song. And it is very healing. I know you said to be myself. I had my leg broken when I was 12. It was horrible. I was in a wheelchair for a year and had to learn to walk again. But don't feel sorry for me, Frank, because that's when I said, I am bored witless. I was watching everybody else water ski out the window. I was bored witless, and someone had bartered with my father and paid them with a spinet piano. And I rolled my wheelchair up to it and I sat there, and that's when I learned to play. I don't think if I was not trapped in that wheelchair, would I have learned to play music. So
I'm a firm believer.
it really healed me. And then it became my profession. So, make it work.
Circumstances dictate action. I believe that. So, you and my dad always taught me to improvise and use what you got, and I believe that is, listen, the only reason I'm doing this is because I was furloughed from work during the pandemic and this, the first wave.
Yes.
And there was just a lot going on. The Ahmaud Arbery trial was going on. It was just, or the case had broken and everything. And I was just in a place. I had written a book called Just to Be Frank, and it was about how to, like, my life tenets to channeling positive energy. So the very first episode
and frank means honest. I mean, when people say, let me speak frankly, frank means honest. Yes.
and I tried to be that, and I started writing, and then one day I'm sitting there, and I was like, you know what? Let me do this podcasting thing. I found Anchor, and I'm just like, okay, I Googled everything, but what started me on it, honestly, was that dang Joe Rogan helping me to realize that people will sit down for a 3-hour conversation
Yes.
if it's interesting, and I did, and you know what, it was eye-opening to me,
Yes.
and I love doing this, but I did it out of necessity. But
Yes.
I guess I always wanted to be in front of the camera. In all honesty, I think I wanted to host a TV show. I think I wanted to host like the Tonight Show or something. No, maybe Jeopardy. I think I did.
So you're a Renaissance man, Frank. Let's see. You're a Renaissance man. Because Joe Rogan is a Renaissance guy. I don't think many people would think of him as a Renaissance man, but he has on Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk. He has on very unusual comedians. He has people that's a Renaissance person, just every walk of life. Yes.
And I saw that you deal in codependency. What exactly is codependency? Because I'm trying to figure out if I have it.
Okay. Codependency is a term, a lot of performers do, and in some it's in an indirect way. And I was one of the worst offenders of codependency. The short version is you lose yourself when you care for others. You just give till you give out or burn out. And burnout is a diagnosis. Codependency is actually not a diagnosis. It should be, but it isn't. And I say it's because you ask a codependent, are you fine? Oh, I'm fine. I can handle everything and anything. No, they can't. It came from the term when someone was dependent on a substance and someone lived with them, it was codependent. So it is not dependency. It's like it's a term that really, they should change the name of it. Some people have called it pathological altruism, meaning it's pathological that you believe the best in some of the worst of people, and you will care for someone who doesn't care for you. You say yes when you mean no, and no when you mean yes. You know, my book's all about that. It's called Codependent Discovery and Recovery 2.0. And it's because it's holistic. Because to me, not just a mental thing, it's a body, mind, and spirit thing. Really, it is. It's a trinity. Like a triangle, if you collapse one side of a triangle, the whole thing falls. So it's very important to treat the trinity, and that's what I do and help people get themselves back. Be themselves, just what you're doing, Frank. You're helping people be themselves.
You know what? Everything you just said, I realized, yes, I do all of that. And then, but I do love the fact that you also approach it with a holistic approach. I believe in holistic as much as Western medicine. I think there needs to be a merging of the two.
Yes.
Because people look at one as hokey and the other is just kind of barbaric. Surgery is barbarous. I mean, but what if we didn't have to do so? What if there was a way to help people from both sides? You know what I'm saying? Mind, body, spirit, so that our healing exactly happens the way it's supposed to, naturally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and holistically, and to make people whole. And people that are codependent, it's like they have a hole in their soul almost, because they're just giving and giving. It's like a funnel, and you have to receive to give. You really do. It's a flow of giving and receiving and giving and receiving and receiving and giving. And then you don't know which is coming. It's great to give. The world needs more compassionate people. But I always say, if the compassion turns to a compulsion to get people to like you by what you're giving, and they call performers giving it a performance, that's why I don't miss being on stage, because I would just, I'd freak out till I get out there, and then I was fine, and then I'd come off and go, whew. And the older I got, and I'm much older now, and the older I got, the less I said, you just gear yourself up for these performances, and then you're just giving till you give out, and you're traveling, and you're setting up microphones, and you're on the road, and they lose the piano, and you can't find your stage clothes, so and I said, why am I doing this? So people will like me. I go sing, and then I go to an empty hotel room. And an interesting thing about me that people might find interesting, I don't, because it's part of my life, but I used to work for Kiss. Rock group Kiss.
Like, come on.
I worked for them for 3 years. So during the show, and I can, just like the Jimmy Buffett song, don't try to describe a Kiss concert if you haven't seen one. And I've never seen a whole one, because I was packing the dressing room when they were going to get them out there. Then I go pack the dressing room and pack the limousines. And I remember the limo, and it was so quiet, so loud, so quiet. And I asked Gene one night, I said, how do you go home to an empty hotel room after 80,000 people have been worshiping at your feet? I said, it's got to be jarring. And then I went, oh, that's why rock stars have groupies. Now I get it. So I'm not.
Nobody's ever alone.
I couldn't judge. I'm not a very judgmental person. So even if someone gets angry at that observation, it's just an observation. It doesn't mean I approve or disapprove. I'm just saying that is what happens to people in that profession. That's why they're lonely. It's a very lonely thing to be 80,000 people, 0 people. Very lonely. So it gives people a perspective on how performers can be indirectly codependent, giving, and then there's nobody there to give back to them. Not really.
But in some instances, yeah, you're right. And it's interesting because I grew up knowing about the rock star lifestyle and rapper life and all, and these things. And we recognize now that a lot of it is obviously toxic as hell, but
Yes.
which is just I really hate that word toxic, but okay, well, because it's such a
We'll get to that in a minute. I'll tell you why it's toxic. Yeah, that's
But-
a good thing for us to talk about.
but we definitely have we've come a long way. We got a shitload far to go, but we've come a long way from that era. But we would be asinine to believe that it doesn't still happen and it's not still going on in some capacity. We just,
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly. Well, and you brought up the word toxic, that you don't like it. So maybe it's not, I'm not trying to get you to like it. I'm just explaining that how we use these words that are actually valid. If someone is toxic for you, and how you know that, especially as a codependent or anyone, I'm going to give you a real simple way, exactly what you are doing on this show, to help people know who they can be around and who isn't toxic. I'm just going to put it that way. If
Okay.
you feel good about you, because codependents always worry about how other people feel about them. And so do other people. Not everyone's codependent. Everybody's got a little bit of it. But I'll back up. If you feel good about you around someone, they're good for you. If you felt badly about yourself around someone, they're bad for you. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means they're bad for you. And the word toxic, if someone makes you feel badly about yourself, it releases cortisol, adrenaline, you get shaky, you get shy, your anxiety kicks in. If someone makes you feel good and you can just relax, then you get dopamine and serotonin. So do you see how it literally is toxic?
No, I understand the science behind it. It's just that I feel like it gets thrown around so
It's overused.
Yeah, like it's like the new woke. It's like it's you know what I'm saying? Like it's just too much, and
it's overused.
It's you know,
and overuse causes desensitization to terms
like the N word. But you know what I'm saying, or words of that nature. But we put so much power behind words. You know what I'm saying? We put so much stock in trade, and I always say, like, words are weapons and they're spells. So what you say, if you constantly berate yourself or tell bad about yourself, then you're gonna be that. That's a frightening thing, because I don't think people really understand. I used to have a teacher. He had this dot matrix printout on his ceiling in the classroom. It said, "You're not allowed to curse in my classroom. Can't is a curse word." That always stuck with me.
Wow.
It always stuck with me that can't is a curse word. And as I got older and I realized, like, you know what? It is, because when you say you can't do something, you are immediately diminishing your entire spirit and being by saying you can't do something. Try it first. Ask for help. Get training. Do you know what I mean? You can do all of these things.
Yes.
To try before you ever say I can't.
I know. Attempt it. When I told you about the wheelchair story, I tried painting, I tried needlepoint, and I'm 12 years old, so I'm trying. I tried knitting. I was horrible at all of the above. And I said, I love music. I'm just going to learn to play this thing. And so and usually what you attempt to do, find what you love and go try that. And don't think about monetizing it. Do not let that be part of the equation. You got furloughed. I was a songwriter at Warner Brothers. Same thing happened to me. That's why I'm a counselor, because Warner sold to AOL, and I had to reinvent. And my dad was a psychiatrist. So I said, well, it's a natural progression. I'm helping people get in touch with their emotions. But I also took a law school exam. I tried, thinking about becoming a professor. Don't ever just think you can't. In fact, when you think you can do everything, then look at them all. And I do guided visualizations in my office, and I have people see themselves in those positions. When I went to take the law school exam and I came home from it and I didn't know how I did, I was just exhausted from it. And then I shut my eyes and I practiced what I preach. I wasn't a counselor yet. I shut my eyes because I meditate every day, and I saw myself as an attorney. I had on a beautiful, now I let my mind take me places. Just like you said, you believe in magic. Meditation is magic for your brain, because your subconscious, if you let your subconscious talk to you, it'll take you where you really need to be. So I was meditating. I saw myself in a beautiful red suit. I saw myself in a gorgeous law firm office, and my brain took me to my desk drawer, and I saw myself opening it. It was full of Mylanta and Tums and antacids.
And not the life for me. Maybe.
And I don't like to wear the color red. So I said, my brain is telling me, like with a red stop sign, no, don't go to law school. So I listened to my brain, and I called some lawyers I knew, and they said, "Oh no, you do not have the temperament to be an attorney."
I have an ex who does the same thing. She will visualize and go. The one I'm probably codependent on. She'll
love her.
Yeah. Definitively. But I trust her mind. It's interesting that you said that, and it's very, very, very important that you did. And I don't want to get all into the business of it, but I will say thank you for that.
You're welcome. Because some people think that law of attraction is just thinking what you want and concentrating on that. Allow your brain to see if that's really what you want. Just go down a lot of avenues when you do guided meditation. It's not going to harm you. Think of yourself being a ballerina or an astronaut. Think how that feels, and then you pay attention to that feeling and the visualizations that bubble up out of your subconscious. It isn't just about thinking only about what you want and nothing else. You can allow yourself, and you can do that, but you can allow yourself to attempt other things, and you do it in your brain first before you spend money or time.
I'm new to the meditation thing. I ain't gonna lie, she got me into it, and I'm kind of new into it, but I do enjoy the solitude of the mind. Let me ask you this: do you have any idea of dimethyltryptamine and how it's produced in the mind, in your brain?
I actually do not.
All right.
But I do know that your brain does produce dopamine, and your brain, when you are meditating, so I do know this much about it. When you're meditating, there's a new scientific field of study called epigenetics. At the end of your DNA chain, there's something called a telomere. It looks like shoelace ends.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
Reverse the frayed end. So when we say like the word toxic, when our nerves are frayed, they actually are, our DNA chain is. Meditation can repair that. Meditation, because you're in solitude, you're not alone. When you're meditating, even just for 5 minutes, you've slowed down your heart rate, you've released dopamine. So your brain is making dopamine, which is a drug.
Right.
Our brain just
I wish I could follow that. I wish I could follow that. Boy, I tell you.
Do, but people use it, and your brain and your body does not make you overuse it. They do. They make all kinds of dopamine.
Dimethyltryptamine is I know there's a version of it that is a high psychedelic drug, and we can get into the idea of psychedelics in a second, but I know it's believed that it's produced in the pineal gland, which is a little gland right here, what they would call that third eye chakra, right? So the correlation between those two things is very interesting to me, and we could also talk about the standard use of fluoride in a second, but my theory is that your subconscious mind is influenced by DMT, which is a psychedelic, and your subconscious mind is your tap into the multiverse. Because I think your dreams are fragments of the multiverse that your subconscious mind can traverse, which is why I think you innately know how to do certain things that you may not normally know how to do. Does that make any sense?
I know nothing about that field. I do know that we are using those treatments for people with PTSD, and that like ketamine, is that kind of what you're talking about there?
No, I was talking about.
I have seen people do well with those, but those are something for a doctor to talk about. It's so above my pay scale or whatever.
Mine too. I'm just, like I said, these are the theories. Listen, these are the theories that one thinks when they're reading different journals and books and things and watching stuff while smoking weed. So these are the thoughts.
There are scientists right now working on releasing it. I think it's called MDMA. It releases oxytocin, which is a trust hormone.
Yes.
And it's a trust hormone. So do you see how people that are traumatized, they don't trust? So trying to find ways to release it without it giving them strokes, because those are giving 20 and 30-year-old strokes. I can't, you know,
right,
can't
because
just say that. Right. It's just horrible. The reason I got a job on the kids tour was because I didn't do drugs, because Gene Simmons doesn't do that. He's like, he's over. And I'm kind of the same way. But I also see what the science is telling me about how this is treating PTSD. And I have, you know, I can't really talk about my practice, but I have seen amazing things from ketamine treatment. So I'm hoping, because if we can get people that are traumatized to feel some semblance of themselves, or to feel some semblance of trust again, the world will be a much better place, and there won't be so much anger and hostility with people that have been traumatized. And most of us have been traumatized. We don't all have PTSD, but most of us have had. I always say 5-year-olds can get traumatized when you tell them, put that candy bar back, we can't afford it. All of a sudden they're like, we're poor. I tell parents, please don't tell your children that you can't afford it. Back to your word can't. Then they get scared.
I think poverty itself is a mental affliction. I think, you know, I'm from Queens, New York originally, and I distinctly, remember growing up poor, you know, but I remember something, I forget who says it, but he's like, oh, it was Dave Chappelle. He said he said that to his dad, was, I hate being poor. And he said that poor is a mental thing, you know what I'm saying? It influences everything that you do. You are not poor, you're broke. And it's a bad.
You're in transition.
I
didn't go to medical school. My father cut me off. So I was 20 years old, which is why I put myself through college as a stagehand, which I'm 65. I don't mind telling people that. I'm 65. And this was the 70s. That was back in the 70s when women were not stagehands. But it was the only thing I could do to make a whole lot of money in a short amount of time to put myself through college, so I could work on weekends and go to school during the week, because I was a theater major. And lighting design major. And I knew I went from being a taken care of kid. I don't want to say I was rich, because it was, as my father put it, that's my money, you're going to go make your own. You're going to be a doctor or else. And when I didn't go to medical school, they just cut me off. And then I went from being taken care of at 20 years old to having nothing. And when I say nothing, nothing. I had an old car and arms that could lift things. I was a stagehand. I was a theater major. I went to my professor and I said, I'm broke. I've just been cut off. I do not want to not finish school. I didn't go, I can't finish school. Do you see how, if I had taken on that poverty thinking, what you're talking about, which said, I can't finish school, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, I went into solution focus. What can I do? What have I got in my hand? I mean, that's straight out of the Bible when Moses said, don't send me, God. And he said, yeah, what's in your hand? Just, I'm not a preachy person at all, but whatever's in your hand, like you said, you had equipment to do a podcast. You did. And you Googled it. You had an ability to Google. That's what you had in your hand. And look, that's how we're talking now. We connected. And that's the beauty. When you say you can't, you really can't. And that's what codependents will do. They say, I can't stop giving to people. I can't stop loving that person. That's not love. That's a trauma bond. And trauma bonds are when people that don't care about you make you think they care about you, and then take the kindness away. So, and that's what happens to people in poverty. They are bonded to that mentality of thinking they have to stay that way. Is it a struggle to pull yourself up? Yes. And did I do it in a straight line? No. I did not go back to graduate school till I was 45, and there were so many detours in my life: divorces, deaths, tragedy, triumphs, you name it. But the detours, and I want people to really hear this, a detour is not a dead end. It's a place to turn around.
or a place to find new adventure.
Or
I
a place, yeah, adventure or rest. Sometimes you just need to rest.
need to rest. I'm a firm believer. This is why I love living in Pennsylvania, because I live in the mountains and I love nature. Yeah, I can't fathom ever living in an urban environment again. Like, I think I'm always going to stick to, like, if I ever, wherever I go, I'm always going to stick to, like, you know, farms and nature and log cabins where I could find it.
Yes.
But I think that that's also transformative in healing, because
Yes.
I know that like I said, I came from Queens, and I had gone through a lot of loss over a certain amount of time. And I recognized that I was just out here one day, sitting on the steps drinking coffee, and a deer walked up on my friend's lawn, and just the whole family, and just started eating grass. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, I can live with this. I can do this. And maybe 2 years later, I just did it, and best thing I ever did. And I tell people all the time, get out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Try.
Nature is nurturing.
Yeah, take those detours.
And that's what really gets you in touch with yourself. I send all my codependent clients. That's why I call it 2.0, because this isn't something you'd hear in a therapist's office. Although I am one, I tell them, don't come see me. You need to go to the beach, or you need to, because I live where there's beaches. You need to get out in nature. You need to take a vacation. I know COVID has made it very difficult, and it has for me too. I've had to cancel so many trips because of COVID, or just little even day trips. I'm locked up this weekend because Florida's got a lot of, we're just inundated with COVID right now. But nature is very nurturing, and just to take walks outside, that's how you really get in touch with yourself better. And you get the vitamin D from the sun, and even when it's cloudy, you get a nice, you get a nice, very tender feeling when it's snowing. The sound, the acoustics of snow it makes it like a studio room.
Oh, you said it, ma'am. You said it. Oh, I love that.
I lived in Manhattan, and then I moved to Connecticut because I needed trees. And I used to love it when it snowed, because I could do walking meditations out there. And I'd get on the deer highways there, because the deer have trails. They make their own roads. People don't realize that they don't get out. And so I would just follow the deer trails so I wouldn't get lost. And it's just, yeah. So I hope people, that's how you really get in touch. If you are codependent out there listening, if you think you just give out, go be by yourself. Take more time for yourself. If you don't, you will never know who you are and what you really want in life. You will not know who you are and what you want unless you get alone with you. So you're not really alone, you're in solitude, which is very different than being lonely.
You know what it is, and I can't lie. I've battled bouts of loneliness, and one thing I've realized is that as I'm aging, and I'll be 40 in August, and I recognize now that where I come from, there was no real talk of mental health and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So I now realize it, and it just, I realize now talking to somebody in that capacity is vital. Somebody objective who doesn't know you, has no agenda, is only trying to sit there and tell you, hey, why are you doing that? Does that make sense?
And if people are thinking about therapy, and thank you for bringing it up, Frank, because this is for everyone to hear. I mean, all of us to become therapists have to go through therapy in some way, shape, or form, or we're not going to get our diploma. And I'm a psychiatrist kid, so the stigma was off for me. In fact, it's in my book that one of my mother's friends who met my mother, and my mother was difficult, very difficult, put me through therapy when I was in my 20s. She offered it to me as a gift, which made a beautiful thing for me because it unraveled so many things early. And I learned through that early gift, that talk about something that was irreverent in a way. This was back when people still smoked in their offices. So he was smoking a cigarette. He goes, I'm going to light this cigarette. I loved it. This is a therapist now. Jim. All I can tell you, his name was Jim. And he lit a cigarette. No, not my 20s. I'm just off the KISS tour. And I'm a hot mess trying to figure out what to do with my life. So he lit a cigarette and said, I'm going to smoke this cigarette. And it takes about 7 minutes. And when I'm done, I want you to tell me what it's going to take to please your parents. And you mentioned Jeopardy too. I kid you not, the theme song to Jeopardy was playing in my head. Like, da, da, da. And I'm like, for 7 minutes, he wouldn't let me speak. And I thought, and my answer was, if I pulled 10 Rolls Royces up to a mansion with mink coats on every seat and said, here you go, mom and dad, the seats would be uncomfortable, the cars would be the wrong color, and the mansion would be brick instead of concrete. I said, I'm like, I can't please them. And he said, right answer, pleasing yourself. Pleasing yourself, because really when you're pleasing yourself, you are pleasing other people, because when you are yourself, you bring other people who are themselves and allow you to be yourself, which is the key to happiness. Just that's why I love the theme of your show. Be yourself, let people be themselves. Don't judge, observe. You can judge behavior if it hurts you. A good therapist is to help you listen to you. You're not, I tell all of the people that come in my office, I'm not here for you to listen to me. I'm helping you listen to you. My job is to help you listen to yourself and to assist you in whatever your goal is. There's not a one size fits all. I believe in that Carl Jung individuation. Everybody knows what they want and they have their own answers. It's just my job to kind of guide it out of them to see. And I do use meditation. I use guided meditations. I use talk therapy. I use music therapy. I use art therapy. Whatever I think might help that person. And we find the answer. Because it's in themselves. And so if somebody does go to therapy, they're not going to try to change you. They're not going to make you relive every horrible moment you ever had. That's an old psychoanalysis kind of method.
Yeah.
But therapy is solution focused. It's actually quicker. It's more expedient. And I liken it to the old therapy. You're just looking through the rearview mirror all the time. You're looking in the past, which will keep you depressed.
Right.
Solution focused is the windshield looking through the going forward. What will it take to move forward from this? Be it trauma, be it decision making, career counseling. So hopefully that makes sense, that there shouldn't be a stigma to mental health, because our mental health is in our body, because it's in our brain. It's physical.
Right. Well, the problem is, I guess as a Black guy, I guess it comes from the idea that doctors are always scary. We remember Tuskegee pretty well. So that's why
I hope I'm not scary.
That's why I haven't been vaccinated, because I just don't trust the CDC anymore. But I wonder sometimes, is it possible for there to be a mass thought process that's like, I'm trying to, I don't really know how to formulate this question, but I'll say this. You're old enough, I'm old enough to remember the difference between journalism and media.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
I miss journalism because that's not a thing anymore.
No.
What,
why, how? Just the facts, ma'am. Dragnet news.
Just the facts, ma'am. Please. Just the facts. All I need.
Yes. And then I'll make my own opinion. Right. I'll form my own opinion.
I'll use my critical thinking. Because that doesn't seem, again, now I'm a product of the New York City public school system. And the one thing I notice about public schools in general, it's not about critical thinking. It's about turning out people who can work in factories. Right? That's what public school is for. So that's what it was for. So it's like, all right, you're not going to get that, but you get out of it what you put into it, obviously.
Exactly. But if nobody puts something into a child's brain to help them know that there's a big world out there and they're part of it, that I think what you're kind of describing there is a form of like social psychology.
Right.
I'm sure everyone has noticed that if we're going all the events on the news that we could all form opinions about, I'm sure everyone's noticed everyone's a little more irritable right now. Everyone.
Yeah.
In traffic, everyone. That is because I think globally we have at like a mental health pandemic of PTSD. The whole world's been traumatized by COVID. So it exacerbates everything. And one of the symptoms of PTSD is irritability, like for no reason, and trouble concentrating.
Yeah.
Everybody's upset right now, and everybody's taking everything out on everyone else. The nice people are getting nicer, the mean people are getting meaner. A lot of us are withdrawn. I'm withdrawn this weekend. I don't want to get out there because, like I said, we're all a little withdrawn. I don't like that. And it kind of disconnects you from other people, which will disconnect you from yourself too. So yes, we all I have the theory, just like many people think, that we are all connected. Albert Einstein said it the best of all people. Albert Einstein was, even though he was a hot mess personally, he said things that were true. He said, every day we have all, when the earth rotates, we have all breathed the same air. We have all touched the same water. Eventually we are all in it together. The weather
Yeah. And I think people are afraid, and I think it's very much a fear thing. I think people are afraid to open themselves up to the idea that we are interconnected. And for me, I'm one of those hippy dippy people that thinks like, yes, every person, every animal, every plant, like we're all connected. It's all energy, and we all share it. And we're all in it together, and yet we keep having these artificial. Hey, what up, pup?
connected. He's always connected to me. Didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, we are dogs. We are.
He's a good dog, but I think we're all, even dogs, everything. Like, think about that connectivity. Like, but I think that people are so isolated now that it's allowed this fear mentality to seep in so much. And I can't lie, media doesn't help. I don't think politics helps. I don't think any of these things actually help. I think what would help is if somehow, some way, all TV just got shut off for like a month, and everybody was just able to like.
Yes, I totally agree. And just connect with other people and talk to people who are unlike you. I loved what they did in we all have to take multicultural classes to become counselors. And it was my favorite class because I'm a unusual, my grandfather came from Italy, so things were different, but I was raised in the South. These are not congruent things. And in those days, nobody liked Italians.
Yeah, I know.
And because you live in Queens, they
were treated. People don't realize Italian people were indeed treated like N-words.
Horribly.
On body.
Lots of names for them. And I got called those names. But in taking that class, they said, interview someone who's totally the opposite of you. And I did. And in that discourse, it just observation, we had a set of questions. And in that discourse with this man from England, who I was nothing like, he was very stuffy and non-emotional, and he was lovely. I knew him from the music business, but to me, we were just worlds apart. He didn't talk with his hands like I do. But the beautiful thing was that in that discourse, there was no discordant. I said, you know what? I would have never thought you and I were alike, Stuart. We're exactly alike. We all just, what I got from that whole thing was that we all just want to love and be loved and accepted for who we are. That's it. The whole human condition.
Yeah.
From the worst of us to the best of us, that is the human condition.
Yeah.
We all just want to be loved and accepted for who we are.
Yeah.
That is, if we could all have those kind of diplomatic conversations and agree to disagree and not try to change each other. Like some elections are not about voting for someone, they're about voting against something.
Which is
which is not right.
Foolish.
It's not right at all. So that's what I hope that we have. That is what I'm hoping that we have.
Well, what I always hope for is that we start to wake up to the idea that maybe we're a bit better than what we were, and we can move forward. My brother Vega, he said, he has a line in a song. He says, "You could be from and I'm paraphrasing, because you could be from the most messed up hood in the world. I bet you smile when you see your girl." You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter. We all share that. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. When you have something that we all share, that, whether you're in the lowest lows or the highest highs, we all just want to be loved. But I think there are some people who love money more than they love people.
And then when you look at that, and when you look at how they got that way, then you cease judging and you start observing and go, wow, okay, I need to be careful when I raise my own children or when I talk to people that they're accruing a lot of wealth to prove a point. Some wealthy people are closet codependents, people in poverty. In my book, I wrote about closet codependents. Part of them, some of them were people that were in the healthcare industry or lawyers or therapists. And I also put in wealthy, extremely wealthy people that are philanthropic. They're just giving and giving and giving. Then there's wealthy people who are greedy. There's all kinds of wealthy people. That there's, you know, there's the Oprahs of the world who give and give and give too. I mean, who give and give back, who get, receive and give back, receive and give back. And she used to be codependent and she talked about it. You know, I mean, I just adore her because she just is who she is. And she tells on herself, good or bad. And she's very spiritual. She has that, she's got that Trinity this concept. But when you start observing how people get the way they get, then you judge a little less and go, okay, because it's touching a nerve in you. It's teaching you something about you. You know, when I do judge people, I'm going, okay, there's something in me that I'm judging. So what is it? And so when I do feel a judgment towards someone, I turn inward and go, where is that in me? Where's that flaw in me? And I want to remove it as quickly as possible. To take I'll put it this way, Frank, if we all would take the invisible gavels out of our hands and listen to one another, just like you and I are right now. We look very different. We're from different generations. What does that matter? We're just humans. When people ask me, like, what do you identify as? I said, I'm human. I'm a spiritual
I don't even understand
being.
that question anymore. I don't even understand that question anymore.
I don't either. I don't get it. I'm a spiritual being in a human experience. I'm in a body. I have.
But I realize that that's something that I think is indeed generational. And I think that, you know, I think when I attribute it weirdly enough to the idea that we used to play outside. You used to have to go knock on your friend's door and ask his mom if he could come outside and be like, and no, he got to clean his room. Well, can I help him clean his room? You know, all that type of deal. You know what I'm saying? You used to have to go find fun, you know. That's not the case much anymore. And I think a lot of it is just, and there's so much emphasis on identity, but not so much emphasis on individuality.
Yes, beautifully said, Frank. Individuality. That's what Carl Jung, that he's a father of psychiatry, and he called it individuation, that we're all different and we should all, and he was a Jewish psychiatrist at the time of Hitler, and he lived in Austria. And he lived in Austria, which the Nazis took over. So that's why his work has come back into style again, because if we would all allow each other to individuate, which is just what you said, and be humanity instead of divisive and fighting all the time. I love diplomacy, and my clients get mad at me when I do this, but I do it for their own benefit and I tell them, you don't have to do it, but you only have to do it for like 5 or 10 minutes. I invite them to just go on YouTube and find any summit meeting between world leaders. I don't care who it is that are trying to stop a war. Like, you know, I'm not going to even mention world leaders because I don't want to make anybody mad. Just 2 world leaders. The chairs are kind of toward each other. They have lovely plants behind them, usually flowers. They have you know, like a beautiful chest in between. There's a wing chair that kind of protects them. Kind of like this chair. They hate each other, mind you, but they take photographs together. They walk out in nature. They're all the same. And they're trying to prevent people from killing each other. If they can stop it at the top, if you stop at the top, and that's what I tell people when they're fighting in their marriage, have diplomatic conversations. Don't ever yell. If you don't yell, you don't get any adrenaline. When you do not scream, your body does not produce adrenaline, and you can keep the conversation calm, even if it's completely divided. It can be a horrible division, but if you just stay calm and listen to one another and say, okay, this is what I hear. This is what I hear. I don't agree. I agree on this. I don't agree on that. Because like I said earlier, I'm a mediator, and we try to find, we try to be Switzerland. It isn't always possible, Frank. You can't always be Switzerland. Sometimes we do.
I'm not lying. I ain't gonna lie. I'm kind of hoping my health insurance covers your practice. I like to but I could use some help, I'm sure, you know, and me and my other personalities up here.
I can. When I need help, I go get it.
You know,
Yeah, if someone in my family dies, if I have a tragedy happen, I don't go through it alone. I call a therapist.
yeah. Oh, you know what? Unfortunately, that's one of those things where I have gone through it alone, inadvertently and purposefully. Because, you know, again, it's a stigma, but nobody cares what men go through sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't care. They don't care when we're hurt, when we're sad, when we're lonely, when we're depressed, when we're crying for help, when we're crying out for help. You know what I'm saying? You know, one of the things
Yes.
I've noticed, I'm a proponent of this. Now, I don't have any children,
I
but
don't either.
I remember distinctly always hearing a lot when I was growing up, stop crying like a girl, right? And that annoyed me.
Boys don't cry.
It annoyed me to no end for two reasons. And it's weird that I even thought this as a kid, but I was like, in one sentence, you're immediately teaching me not to process my emotions properly, but you're also diminishing and telling me that women are weaker or girls are weaker because they cry. You're objectifying that idea into my mind as a kid that I'm supposed to be, but I don't think that's true. I'm one of those. I don't think that's true. I don't think that you can have the ability to carry something in your womb and then push it out of you and not be the strongest thing on planet Earth. I don't see it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? I again, and I see my ex goes through and these things, and I look at her and I look at her strength and everything she's going through, and I applaud her. I watch her grow, and I've watched her grow, and even though we're not together, I'm so effortlessly proud of her. But I wonder, is that a symptom of codependency on my part? In that,
Oh, I don't. So that's called love. What do you think is codependent on your part? We'll just do it in live session here. No.
all right, well, because she's gonna hate.
No insurance
She's
filing.
so gonna hate this. She's so gonna hate this. But it's helpful. But no, the truth is, like, I still help her, you know what I'm saying, in a way. Like, I'm still there for her if whatever she needs. If she needs me,
Oh, that's kindness.
okay.
That's kindness. That's compassion. When really it would be codependency if she stole money from you and took your car and crashed it and didn't pay for it and did all these horrible things, and then you stay, but I love her. That's codependency.
Right. Okay.
Helping someone, being kind to someone and compassionate, not codependency. We need more of the codependent type in the world. Actually, they're empathic. They have emotional intelligence like you, Frank. That's what you're describing, because your family, and I hate that they tell boys they can't cry. And I never thought of that aspect of it. I learned something from everyone. I never thought, yes, they are diminishing women when they say you're crying like a girl.
Right.
Wow.
Immediately. And
your dad kind of took your throat and just shut it down,
yeah.
and said you don't have a right to your feelings. And when you repress your feelings, you get angry and depressed. You repress, you depress.
All right. And it's a frightening thing. And then you have to go through so much reprogramming as you get older. Yes. And trying to fix yourself becomes a chore, when in reality, the best thing to do is to just talk to them and ask them why, what's going on, why you feel this way. All right. I feel, try and understand. And a lot of times it's that we don't take the time to put ourselves in each other's shoes and see it from their perspective and point of view. And I think it's incumbent upon each of us to kind of take a step back at times and recognize, indeed, hey, you know what? You are kind of being an asshole right now. Maybe chill. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people have the forthright of mind to do that all the time. To take that step back and be like, all right, you know what? You're kind of the problem. It's you, man. It's you. It's you.
Exactly. Or to request apologies when necessary. Sincere ones. Just say, some people just need to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
Right.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. We don't have many apologies anymore. I'll tell you what will really scare your audience, Frank. narcissism became so prevalent in our society, they almost took narcissistic personality disorder out of the DSM-5, which is in there. But when something becomes prevalent, they,
What's the DSM? What is that? What is
that is
the
the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. That is what we diagnose with.
Okay.
Say that.
No,
And we
thank you.
there's like decision trees in there. No, they're like bullet point lists, and it's a very thick book, and we have to study it ad nauseum in school. But narcissistic personality disorder is different than just being narcissistic. Our society's become a little narcissistic. Some of it's healthy. I don't even like the term healthy narcissism. I like the term self-confidence, because if you're self-confident, you can confide in yourself. You don't tell everybody how good you are. You just know you are on the inside, and it will show on the outside, and you don't have to say a word.
Right.
I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I'm the this, I'm the that. That's your internal dialogue you talked about. And back to your point about not crying, science has found out that crying is what trauma does to get outside of your body, because those trauma chemicals I talked about, they go in your muscles, they go in your eyes. That's why some people, when they get a massage, they'll cry.
Yeah.
Because it's those emotions get trapped in chemical form inside your muscles. People can laugh about that if they want, but it's true. You need to cry, you express yourself, you do.
It's interesting you say that, because that's why I feel strongly that hunting is the way to actually obtain your meat as opposed to factory farming. And the reason I think that is because, taking away from the fact that these are mammals, that means they bear children, that means they have emotions. Just because we can't understand them doesn't mean that they don't speak and feel. And and I sound like, again, I'm a hippy dippy weirdo, but imagine you're a cow, and we're so messed up as people, we didn't even give them an actual name. Your name is just what you are. You're a cow. And they see their friends that they've probably grown up with getting led into this place that they never come back from. That releases those same hormones and neural and biochemicals into their bloodstream, and it gets trapped in the muscles. And then we consume that and wonder why we have so many heightened levels of anxiety. And does that make?
And then they give them steroids. Yes, they give them steroids. And what you're describing there, and boy, you touched a nerve near and dear in my heart, because I really tried being a vegetarian forever. I mostly eat fish, but I can't even fish anymore because I don't like to inflict pain on anything or anyone. The older I get, the more empathic I get. But yes, you touched a nerve, because I was married to a rancher, and I used to have to leave. I wasn't married to him long. I was married once for 20 years, and the second time for 5, and it was and I thought I could handle that. My 20-year marriage, I had horses and I loved them, and they were well taken care of.
Right.
But when I briefly got married, I made an idiot choice. I'm just going to put it out there. I made a complete choice. I mistook history for safety, and so hopefully that helps someone out there. And I fixed that choice. I'm here to help people understand you can make terrible mistakes and be excellent at what you do, because you learned because of it, not from it. But when it was separate the calves from the mother day, I had to leave. They would cry for 4 and 5 days. I used to go anywhere. I used to check in hotels. I used to go visit friends. I could not handle the screaming, the crying. They're taking their children away. They actually respond worse than human beings. And I said, and then I realized, I said, I'm married to somebody who can do that and not feel it. And that's the opposite of who I am. Yeah. And I developed an exit strategy very quickly. Yeah. I made a mistake. I made a choice based on what I was taught instead of what I believe. Mm-hmm. I wasn't being myself. I was being codependent. Yeah. So hopefully that helps someone. You do not, and it doesn't have to be ranchy. It doesn't have to be that. Whatever, if you're not living with someone who's supportive of you in some way, shape, or form, they don't have to be totally like you. but the more they are, the better off it'll be. But if they're not supportive of you, even if something's not, even if they're flawed, we're all flawed.
Yeah.
Flaws make us human. Flaw is what makes the stone precious and real. We cut around the flaws, but truthfully, what you're saying is just let people be themselves. I think that's what we've been talking about today, Frank, is letting people be themselves.
Yeah, because a lot of
And
people,
that is not being codependent, because if you're codependent, you will morph yourself in to that other person.
right. And there's not, and I always say, there's nothing wrong with healthy change. Like if if you're changing for the better and the changes you're making are beneficial to you and they're good for you and your relationships and things of that nature, go for it. But if you're changing simply to be something that you're not, or just to keep somebody, or just to whatever, if it's coming from a negative place, and it's so much harder to be positive than it is to be negative. Negativity is so easy, but positivity takes so much more strength of character, I think, to be that, so if you can recognize that, I think you have to try really hard to be the better person, be a good person. I'm not saying be a sucker, but
There you go. That's right.
don't be a sucker, but don't let. Weirdly enough, I can say this. One of the chapters in my book is don't let somebody take you from being who you are. And you know what I mean? So don't change just to fit the mold of what somebody else has in their mind of you. Be yourself, but if you can make some changes that would be beneficial and work out for the better, go for it. Do it.
Our books are very similar, Frank. They're very, very similar, because my book is all about helping people say yes to themselves without guilt, say no to others without guilt. It isn't easy to be yourself. It really isn't. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone about everything, but can we just all allow ourselves to be individuals and not fight so much?
Right.
Like you said about journalism versus media. Media is divisive and gets us all fighting. I don't care which side you're on or which configuration. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. I don't watch the news like other people. Sometimes I read it. I just want like the facts. I'm trying to glean for facts. But I have noticed that I started watching BBC because they just present the facts. They don't have all the flash bells and whistles. They don't have all that stuff. And also I'll watch the business news because it'll talk about how things that are happening in the world are affecting business, which makes it just so much more factual. It's just, it's all just bars and graphs and how it's affecting the economy. So you're getting your news not from so much opinion as you are from fact.
Right. Editorializing everything and people
and emotionalizing everything. It doesn't have to be emotional.
No, but I think it's emotional for people because, again, I think it's fear. I think that fear is a harbinger of all negativity. Anything that you can have, any thought can be attributed back to fear. And I think that if you allow that to rule your everything, you will be more jaded. You will be more less likely to want to know. In fact, you just want to be told what you want to be told.
Exactly.
And that can be really scary. And I wonder sometimes, like I'm from the 5 boroughs where we were not allowed to have guns, right? And then I moved to a place where I've seen 3-year-olds with rifles. Right?
And I live in Florida, so that's enough said.
Oh, man, listen, but I've noticed there's a distinct psychological difference that you get growing up in one environment and then growing up and then living in somewhere else with them. Like I'm intrigued by that a whole lot because it's very much it's like something that everybody shares, this gun culture, but some places you're not allowed to have it, and yet everybody has them.
Right, and it's a frightening thing. And I feel my blood pressure going up because I don't want to share an opinion about that because I don't want anybody. form your own opinions.
Yeah.
People need to form their own opinions. And our brains, I will say this about fear, like animals have mirror neurons, what you described earlier. We cross species with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little dog you saw is sweet, but I have another one who has fear aggression. I've had to take him to a therapist, a dog therapist. Not really, I took him to behaviorist. That's what I just call it, a therapist. And it has fear aggression. And because our brains and all animals' brains are wired for fear to keep us safe. But when they get overwired or over aroused or overactive, then we get aggressive. So fear is there to keep us safe. And then if it escalates too much, it'll make us unsafe. So the very thing that keeps you safe is the very thing that can make us unsafe as a society. When fear turns to aggression, or when fear turns to withdrawal, and you just, you know, sink into yourself.
Yeah.
People with PTSD never hardly come out of their houses, and they get, and we punish people with solitary confinement. They get psychotic breaks. This is why we see people with guns going out and shooting all over the place, because they've been alone too long. No one has, mental health stigma, no one talks to them, no one notices it, no one picks it up. So isolation is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody learns that loneliness is dangerous. Harvard did a study that said people that are lonely die 15% quicker than those who smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol. So they've been doing this study for 75 years. They were shocked when they found that out.
Yeah.
They weren't studying loneliness, by the way. They were just studying life.
Yeah, but it comes up as it comes up because you notice that, like, I always looked at it like, you know, I don't like it when men, like widows tend to live longer than widowers, you know, and I find that that's true because most guys don't have a huge social network, you know what I'm saying?
Women watch out for men. We're nurturers. Like, honey, go get your blood pressure taken, honey. Vitamin. Men don't do that.
No, you know what I mean? But I know that, like, my grandma lived, my granddad died in 88. My grandma passed away in 2009. And she lived by herself for the rest of that time. And, you know, I never got a chance to ask her ever if she was lonely, but I didn't think she was, because she was always helping others, always, you know, making sure everybody else was okay. And you know, she never wavered in that. And it's one of those things I look to for myself, is to try and do the same thing as much as humanly possible. But I also don't think she ever really always took the time for herself as she got so much old, you know, a little older.
And she may have been a codependent, because back then women were taught to do that. I certainly was. I was taught women were put on this earth to serve men. That is what my Italian mother taught me. Those very words, women are put on this earth to serve men. So yeah, yowza. but the world is changing, and Italians aren't like that anymore. That's not the message they're giving.
No, they are, and you know, I think that
now so people cry.
Yeah, there's probably a lot more reasons for that than people would realize. But I think one of those is that we are getting more into the idea that men do hurt, and you know, sometimes it's, you know, it is where our emotions are. You know, I know heartbreak, I know joy, I know both sides of the coin. And I think both sides are relevant to the human experience.
Yes, all human emotions. And what we're doing here is the connection you described in your grandmother, which was beautiful. I just had a lovely image of her. I could just kind of see her in my mind's eye. That's what happens when you meditate a lot. You can visualize when someone's speaking to you. But connection, if people get nothing from this conversation other than connection is protection. You can tell I used to be a songwriter, everything rhymes, but connection is protection.
I love it.
It's when we disconnect that we reject, and that is that's really rough on people. So it's just lovely to connect, and that's not codependent, that's compassion.
You know, it's funny, because my grandma passed in 2009, my mom passed in 2010. And even now, I'm tearing up thinking about it, but even now, I still miss them every day. And interestingly enough, I weirdly enough, I take some solace in something that I read in a comic book.
something that Wolverine says to Peter Parker after Captain America is killed. He says, grief is like this hole in your stomach that's closes over time. You don't move past it or anything. You learn to live with it, but it fills it over time. And then you hear a song on the radio, or you see a picture, or the wind blows from the left instead of the right, and it just opens back up again.
Yes, it does.
And boy, oh boy, does that suck. But again,
It does. But what does it do? What'd you learn because of it? It makes you inventory of your life. So what did you learn from it?
I think you have to feel that. You have to
Yes.
incorporate that, because it is a daily thing to feel these emotions, to feel grief,
Yes.
to feel joy, it's all there. And
Yes.
we should, but one thing we don't do is allow ourselves to feel it or express it
Exactly.
for fear of being a burden to somebody else.
Exactly. And you're not. It's not. That makes us human. It's the human condition to want to be heard. This is such a beautiful moment because you're heard, and those are real feelings. I have terrible grief issues in my life, and just like you said, the wind, that's so beautiful how you said the wind can just blow to the left. That is so true. You're just at the grocery store and you just double over in agony, and it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. If more people would realize it's okay not to be okay. And I love what do you know who Larry David is? I'm sure you do if you're in New York. Larry David will just inject some humor. Larry David always is at the therapist on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yep.
And I love it that he's taking the stigma off of it to his audience. And he walked, I think it was to Rob Reiner's character that he was talking to, but he said, don't you just love therapy? You'd have to burden your friends and family with this, you know what, with this manure. But you know what? What do we make fertilizer out of? Manure, right? So if you don't embrace the fertilizer moments of your life by feeling the pain and using them for fertilizer, there's such a thing as post-traumatic growth too. And I'm working on one of those projects for Daily Om right now on post-traumatic growth and for connection and how to come out of isolation from this COVID mess to insulation with friends and family.
Yeah.
So this connection is protection. Remember that. And it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to cry. That's beautiful. Do you know when you cry, I felt the love? Because we have mirror neurons. I'm an empathic person. Most people are.
Oh yeah.
And some more than others. Some more than others. I can tell you're an empath.
Oh yeah.
Some others with empaths always find each other somehow. But you're showing me that you had love for someone else. When you cry because you miss someone, that proves to everyone who hears you that you had the ability to love people, to love your mom, to love your grandmother. So few people can say that. Some people don't even know who their parents are. Some people we have a whole world of refugees who have been separated from family and homelands. And I know my family was from Italy. I've heard their refugee stories. And as my grandfather put it, he was terrified and elated simultaneously. He was just a kid, he was a teenager. It's like, what's going to happen to me? And then the fear becomes excitement. If you don't feel the fear, you won't be able to turn it into excitement. If you don't feel the pain, you won't be able to seek joy. Your brain will seek joy when you start feeling pain. Right. It's beautiful what you said. I hope everybody got the message just listening. It's okay not to be okay. And this connection we're having right now, so many people can relate to this. So many people have grief issues. Oh, it's just, I don't believe in the word closure. Please don't.
That's a myth. That's a myth.
It's a myth. It's a myth.
It's a myth.
It's right up there with everything happens for a reason. No, it doesn't. And whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No, it doesn't. It makes you weaker. It makes you wiser, but it does not make you physically stronger. It makes you weaker.
Yeah. So you have to feel that, and then
go
out and try and do something about it.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, I've realized, around the holiday season, around this time, I feel it all the time. Every year.
Yes.
Feel it. And then slowly but surely, you move on, but
it always comes back. Again, it's that time
Yes,
of year.
it cycles back around. It's like
Always
it's
comes back
different
around.
stages of grief. It's more like cycles of grief. The circle just gets a little bit tighter when you're in abject grief, and then it gets a little bit wider. But yes, it would be denying your mother's and grandmother's existence for you to not feel that pain occasionally. You miss them. Funerals aren't for the people who are gone. Funerals are for us to honor those that were part of our lives, and to take inventory of our own lives and say, what do I want to do with my life? Life is very short. If you live to be 100, you live 32,500 days. That's only 5,200 weekends. Is this waking everybody up now?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Just do math at y'all. Just do math at y'all. But you're right. And time is
Precious.
an illusion. It's precious. It's the one commodity you do not get back. We give it, but you do not. But you have to spend it.
Elon Musk cannot buy 1 ounce of Jeff Bezos, any billionaire. They can't buy.
They're gonna try.
They can't buy an ounce of time.
They're gonna try.
They're gonna try. You can't. No one can. And it is a precious commodity. You are so correct. It is very, very precious. It's the one thing we can't get back. So I'm grateful for this moment to talk to you in time, because it's been a lovely conversation. I love it that we like the old Freudian kind of psychiatry, free association. That's been it's lovely.
People don't have conversations and just enjoy each other's company anymore. And I think that's something that's lost a lot in this, due to COVID and everything. I did want to touch on one last thing. I know you do mediation, you deal with divorce, you deal with custody. Do you deal with like custody agreements and things of that nature? I often wonder, what is it that one looks for when they're looking at who would get full custody, or how that's doled out? Is that, I don't know if that's something you could explain to me, because it's difficult.
It's a tough subject.
Yeah,
and
it's difficult.
A whole nother subject for a whole nother day. But I'll tell you, down in Florida, they call it parenting timeshare plans. And I said, children are not condominiums.
Right.
They're human beings.
What?
It's not called custody anymore. It's not called custody hearings anymore. It's about parenting plans. I'm like, parenting plan. Like we used to call human resources used to be called personnel. Much kinder word, person. It made a person there instead of a human resource. It sounds like now I don't
want to tell you what that makes me think of.
So same thing when some of the thing, and it's sad when parents cannot, when they weaponize children in a divorce. You're not getting him, you're not getting her. If they weaponize children and do those things, it's very sad to see that. Usually when they can't agree, we'll refer it to the judge, and it's all the luck of the draw when you get a judge. There's good judges and judges that will benefit on the side of the child. There's judges that's like the least. I would talk about a job I could not do, because I'm not very judgmental.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all make judgments, but there's a difference between making judgments about human behavior and being judgmental.
Right.
And you send children into the court system, it's very traumatizing.
Yeah.
So I try to assist parents, even if they just come to me for counseling, to think about the benefit of the child. Stop thinking about yourselves.
Right.
I mean, if a man or a woman knows they're not a good parent, don't weaponize that child. Allow that child to be with the other parent who's more loving and nurturing and giving. It's a very difficult choice to make, but if they can, I try to find the common ground, the thing they can talk about and agree on, and then start working on the disagreements. I'm trying to make that bond. I'm trying to take that trauma bond and turn it into an empathic bond for the child or the children, and to realize that they're playing with lives here. So you brought up that's a tough subject. So the factors that go into it are so complex. And you just hope the judge can see it, because hearings don't last very long.
Right.
And of course, that, and which is why I go a lot. I'm one of those people that thinks that jobs like that are just kind of archaic and stupid to a degree. Like, can't we find a better way to go about this? Like, you got one guy whose sole perspective on everything is based on just the letter of the law and his ideas and ideology. And that can be they don't always mix well.
No, I totally agree. And I know our court system can't afford a jury for every single hearing and trial, but wouldn't it be nice if we all had a jury of our peers? It's called our peers, and they're chosen for juries are chosen for their open-mindedness, for their objectivity. The way you're not going to get on a jury is if you say, I hate this kind of person, I hate that kind of person. They're going to excuse you. So someone wants to get off jury duty, just go there saying you hate this, you hate that. You won't get it. You won't. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's weird, and that's a very strange thing, because I've never been called for jury duty. You don't want me, trust me, but I don't want to waste my time, because I'll be the one in the jury like, yeah, I can see how that didn't make any sense. Yeah, no, because I'm open minded. I'm like, yeah, no, I can see that. Like, oh, you just got mad and murdered her. Oh, but yeah, no, I can understand. Like, yeah, no, I'm not judgmental enough.
Yeah, you're a perceiver. There's this Myers-Briggs test that tells that people are introverted, extroverted, intuitive, or thinking, and it has a lot of things, but the judgment and the perceiving. So you're probably more of a perceiver. They see all the details in the big picture. Judgment just say one way or the other. They have
which I think falls in line with just the facts, because I want the facts, not your. Yeah, so I can decide, oh, okay, well, this is the best course of action, as opposed to you telling me, well, yeah, think this way, X, Y. No, thank you. Don't like that.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
Ma'am, Mary Joy, it was indeed a joy to speak with you today.
Frank. I love frank conversations. I do. I the name Frank, I've always loved. I wish I wanted my parents to name me Frankie or Frances, because it means the truth. It means just be honest.
General rule I've discovered: everybody knows somebody named Frank, in some way, shape, or form.
And married too.
Yes, and married. Tell everybody the name of your book.
It's Codependent Discovery and Recovery 2.0, a holistic approach to healing and freeing yourself. I should have had a copy of it next to me. I can get one, but I'd have to.
By all means, hey, listen, I ain't gonna stop you. By all
I'll get one off camera. My dog will have to hold the spot, so I'll get a copy.
Come on, dog. What we doing? If you really just sit there in the chair and relaxes, that'd be so cool. Like, hey.
There it is.
There it is. Perfect.
I'm being Vanna White now. I'll come back around.
She's got the most job security on the planet. She is still going. I love Vanna White.
Just move my chair here, but hopefully the microphone's back on. So
yeah, no, you're good. You're fantastic.
Yes, and what I love about this cover is that the bird is in the cage, but the door is open to make its own decision.
Right.
So that's what this is about. Just what you said today, make your own decisions. And people in here are gathering facts about what they do want and don't want in their lives. So at the end of every chapter, they're writing their own self-help book, basically in bullet points.
Right.
And I'm having them on the left column, they put what they don't, on the right, they put what they do want in their life. So they're only left with what's right for them.
I love it.
It helps them see themselves very quickly.
Yeah. Is this in?
End of it, they burn the left list. They just burn it. Like a phoenix.
They can get it on Amazon and all that.
Amazon, anywhere. Yeah.
Can I go into a bookstore and get it? Because Lord knows I miss bookstores so much.
I know. Well, they are in many bookstores, but yeah, it's on Amazon, indie books. It's published by HCI, distributed by Simon & Schuster. So you can go to either one of their websites. It's just type it. Usually if you just type in my name, and because my name's spelled differently, it's Joye.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's why I spelled Starfire that way, because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be different. And And you know what? I'll put the link in the description of the video on everything so they can find it. Are you on social media at all? I'm hoping.
Yes, and I have a YouTube channel, but I forget to tell people the end of every chapter is a meditation exercise. They don't have to do them. They don't have to read them. I have them on YouTube. You just go to my YouTube channel, shut your eyes, and it does it for you. And an audiobook's coming out soon. I have a lovely woman named Bailey Varness reading it. She's great. And I think it's better that I connect with people this way than I would have had to shut my practice down for 3 or 4 weeks to read my own book. But at the end of every chapter is a list that they make themselves. They can do this on paper, but it's what they don't want and what they do want. This chapter is about financial abuse. You're divesting of this, you're investing in yourself this way, and then they just burn it at the end. They burn the bad list ceremoniously, like a phoenix.
I love it. Oh, I love that. That makes me
Get beauty for ashes. We get beauty for ashes, but you have to get rid of the ashes.
You have to give it to the ashes, man. Well, Mary Joye, I want to thank you ever so much for joining me. If y'all liked what y'all heard, please make sure you subscribe, like, hit the notifications, all that jazz. But thank you ever so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to speak with you today.
Same here. I loved it.
Thank you so much for joining me. And you're, of course, welcome back anytime. You are more than welcome all the time. I'm, of course, Frank Starfire for Mary Joye. This has been the Just to Be Frank podcast. Thank y'all for joining me as ever. One love, abracadabra. Peace.